The present passage, the one that we're going to discuss now, is another difficult passage. Many students would have found a lot of words here, or would find a lot of words here which are a little difficult to understand. Even the context, if you don't know, you would say, maybe I cannot do this passage. Move on to the next one, maybe. All right. But again, when you find a difficult passage, it's okay to do it at the end, right? The last of the four, let me attempt it. But you must remember that if you read it from the main part of view, you can at least answer 3 out of 4 questions instead of saying, I'm going to do it later. Later, you will never find the time. My approach always is, if you find a passage difficult, read it quickly once, because anyway, you have to go back to the passage to refer to the questions. Read it quickly but thoroughly. Don't skip anything. Once you do that, 2 answers, I remember reading it somewhere and read it. If there's an inference question, leave it. So at least you attempt 2 out of 4 questions and move on to the next one. Attempt it quickly and move on to the next one. That would be a better idea. So what was this passage about? It was about the Holocaust, about 4 a selection of autobiographical writings by Jewish survivors of the Holocaust. All right. The writers that the passage has chosen are 6 writers who had been taken from different backgrounds, different countries of Europe, and they had all spent time together in a concentration camp in Auschwitz in Poland. And their experiences he is quoting. The first one that he does is he mentions Otto Dov Kulka, who writes about skits, plays that were performed during his time in Auschwitz, and of the special and dark humor he had developed there. Obviously, a person who doesn't know, who knows he is doomed, he is going to die sooner or later, going to be sent to the gas chambers. Obviously, they would develop dark humor if they develop any humor at all. So this guy said that that he remembers skits, and he also remembers the dark humor he developed. Then it gives a description of Kulka. He was a child in Czechoslovakia when he was sent to Auschwitz, and he wrote a book, The Landscapes of the Metropolis of Death, 2013, where he mentions his fellow inmates in that camp, and one of them was Herbert. Herbert had given him and had introduced him to culture, to Crime and Punishment, the book, to Shakespeare, to all kinds of the culture, European humanism, which he calls European culture, European humanism. And then he recalls this another person called Freddie Hirsch, who devoted himself and his team of instructors to teach children in the concentration camps. History lessons, all that, artistic performances, plays, concerts, and even operas. So he says Hirsch's barracks became the center of spiritual and cultural life. And Kulka says that these experiences were significant in shaping his life, in the way he turned out later in life. Then he says that there was a limit to what culture and artistic escapism could do, because he says that all these history lessons, all these performances were happening within 100 to 200 meters of the place where people were selected. Every day, every few days, people were selected to be sent to the gas chambers, and they were again 100 or 150 meters away from the crematoria, places where the bodies were disposed of. So obviously, in the midst of this atmosphere of death and killing, these people have somehow managed a little bit of culture and a little bit of teaching. Similarly, he says that he is basically, reflecting on the art and culture that happened in these concentration camps, and he's reflecting on what they actually did, how he felt. He says, any pursuit of art in the camp, Frankel, there's another writer who says that any pursuit of art in the camp can be seen as grotesque. Grotesque means ugly, twisted, right? He says because it was set against the backdrop of a desolate camp, and he says it was a bizarre artistic experience. Strange. You're looking at art when somebody is dying. Then Frankel mentions one person called Imre. I hope I'm getting the pronunciation right. I looked up two pronunciation sites, and one called it Imre and one called it Imra. So I said, it's the same thing. All right. He says this Imre was mentioned by Kulka. He says he chose Brotherhood of Man to teach the children a song. He was teaching the children a song, and the song he selected was strange because it was Brotherhood of Man based on Mozart's Ninth Symphony. And he said Brotherhood of Man in a time where hardly that is happening. So many found that very absurd, the selection, the choice of the song. And the author of the autobiography, that is Kulka, asks, was he expressing his undying commitment to this value, that is the brotherhood of man, or was it an act of sarcasm? All right. And then after that, there's another book that he mentions where he talks of somebody who tries to escape. He calls it a doomed attempt. She tries to escape, and she says they were hiding in a barn, and when they were allowed out, she says the joy they found in playing like children, she'll never forget. All right. Now, he has also mentioned other things about the writers in the concentration camp. There were 6 writers about whose selection of autobiographical writings the original piece has given. And he said that out of those 6, 3 only survived. According to the passage, Kulka viewed Imre's choice of songs with a sense of what? What was his view about Imre's choice of Mozart's symphony, Ninth Symphony, Ode to Joy? What did he think of that? Extreme absurdity, since the camp inmates were being murdered on a regular basis. Did he say it was extremely absurd that he chose Ode to Joy? He chose one which was on Brotherhood of Man. Did he choose it because of that? Did he call it absurd? No. Total irrelevance, did he talk about it? He found no meaning, no relevance to their condition? No. Bemusement, what does bemusement mean? It doesn't mean amusement. To be bemused means to be puzzled, to be confused. Kulka is also confused. Why did he choose Ode to Joy? Why did he choose a song which was based on the Brotherhood of Man? Why did he do that? He says either because he wanted to show his commitment to the song, to the principles, the ideals shown in the song, or it was a form of extreme sarcasm. So he was confused, he was baffled. He still couldn't understand Imre's choice of Ode to Joy, Mozart's Ninth Symphony. He still wasn't sure why. Therefore, answer is bemusement, confusion, no clear answer. All right, anger, no way, extreme word. And he didn't say anything about composer. It is Mozart, but he doesn't say why did Imre choose a song composed by a German. Right? He didn't say that. So answer is C, bemusement.